Welcome to Midnight Sleep Crime Story. I'm going to help you relax tonight. I know many of you want to use this video to fall asleep. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel. Let me know where you're watching from and what is the time there. Also do well by telling me the kind of story you would like to listen to. Story title: The Officer's Promise, a small town secret that changed everything. A quiet American town is shaken when a respected police officer makes promises he can never keep. What begins as admiration and trust slowly turns into a web of secrets, lies, heartbreak, and a shocking discovery that leaves an entire community asking one question: how did nobody see it coming? This emotional sleep story mystery is filled with suspense, gentle narration, small-town drama, unexpected twists, moments of humor, and a powerful message about truth, accountability, and justice. In the sleepy town of Willow Creek, where porch lights glowed like tiny stars and neighbors waved from picket fences, everyone thought they knew everyone. The local bakery opened at 6 every morning. The town clock rang every hour. And Officer Ethan Brooks was known as one of the friendliest officers in town. People trusted him. Children waved at him. Store owners greeted him by name. To most people, Ethan Brooks seemed like the kind of man who could never do wrong. But sometimes, the biggest secrets hide behind the brightest smiles. And this story begins with a promise that would eventually destroy lives, expose lies, and bring an entire town to a standstill. So settle in, get comfortable, and listen carefully, because not every hero is who they appear to be. 17-year-old Madison Carter had dreams larger than Willow Creek itself. She dreamed of becoming a nurse. She dreamed of traveling. She dreamed of helping people. Her mother often joked that Madison was born with a suitcase in one hand and a notebook in the other. Madison laughed. Everyone loved her cheerful personality. She volunteered at community events. She helped elderly neighbors carry groceries. She even tutored younger students after school. The future seemed bright, but like many teenagers, Madison believed the best in people. Sometimes a little too much. One summer afternoon during the annual Willow Creek Festival, Madison volunteered at the information booth. Children ran around carrying cotton candy. Music drifted through the air. A pie-eating contest had somehow turned into a pie-throwing contest. Nobody knew how. The mayor accidentally got hit with blueberry filling. The crowd laughed. Even Madison couldn't stop laughing. That was when Officer Ethan Brooks walked over. "Looks like the mayor lost another battle," he joked. Madison smiled. Neither of them knew that this brief conversation would become the beginning of a story that would eventually make headlines. Over the following months, Ethan seemed to appear everywhere. At community events, at charity drives, at school safety programs. Whenever Madison saw him, he always had something kind to say. At first, it seemed harmless, normal. But slowly, Ethan began making promises. Big promises. He talked about future plans. He talked about dreams. He talked about building a life together someday. Madison, young and trusting, believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was respected, trusted, a police officer, someone everyone assumed was honest. Meanwhile, Ethan carefully avoided discussing certain parts of his life. Whenever questions became too personal, he changed the subject. Whenever someone asked about his weekends, he laughed it off. Whenever details mattered, he became vague. At the time, nobody noticed. But later, investigators would notice everything. Every conversation, every contradiction, every lie. Months passed. Then one afternoon, Madison's best friend Chloe noticed something strange. "Have you ever been to Ethan's house?" Chloe asked. Madison paused. "No." "Have you met his family?" "No." "Any relatives?" Madison frowned. Again, "No." Chloe sat quietly. Something felt wrong. People who tell the truth rarely have trouble sharing simple details. But Ethan seemed surrounded by unanswered questions. Questions that would soon become impossible to ignore. As autumn leaves covered Willow Creek, rumors began circulating. Small rumors, whispers, tiny pieces of information. Nothing concrete, nothing proven, yet enough to make people wonder. Then one day, a photograph appeared online. A simple photograph. At first glance, it looked harmless, but hidden within that image was a detail that would change everything. A wedding ring, not on Ethan's hand, on someone standing beside him. Someone who appeared far too comfortable. Someone who seemed very familiar. Someone investigators would later identify as his wife. The problem? Nobody in Willow Creek knew Ethan was married. Not even Madison. And that revelation was only the beginning. The discovery spread quickly. Friends asked questions. Parents asked questions. Community leaders asked questions. Soon, official investigators began examining the situation. Records were reviewed. Statements were collected. Evidence was gathered. The deeper they looked, the more disturbing the picture became. The respected officer had not been honest. Critical information had been hidden. Promises had been made under false pretenses. And because a minor was involved, authorities treated the matter with the seriousness it deserved. What started as rumors soon became a formal investigation, and Ethan Brooks found himself facing consequences he never expected. When pressure increased, Ethan disappeared. Phone calls went unanswered. Messages were ignored. People searched for explanations. Instead, they found silence. The town became obsessed with one question: where was Officer Ethan Brooks? Some people thought he had left the state. Others believed he was hiding with relatives. One elderly man confidently claimed Ethan was disguised as a fisherman in Alaska. Nobody knew where he got that idea. The rumor spread anyway. For weeks, speculation filled coffee shops and diners. But investigators never stopped searching, because eventually, the truth always leaves footprints. Chapter 7. The shocking discovery. Then came the breakthrough. Authorities located Ethan. The discovery stunned everyone. Not only had he hidden important facts from Madison, but investigators confirmed he had already been legally married. The promises he made about a future together had never matched reality. Evidence mounted. Witnesses came forward. Documents told their own story. And soon, formal charges followed. The town watched in disbelief. The man they trusted had built his reputation on a foundation of secrets. Court proceedings attracted enormous attention. Residents packed public galleries. Journalists filled notebooks. Families discussed the case at dinner tables. Throughout the process, one message became clear. No one is above the law. Not teachers, not business owners, not politicians, and not police officers. Accountability matters. Trust matters. Truth matters. As the legal process unfolded, Willow Creek slowly began healing. The road wasn't easy, but healing never is. The hidden phone records Willow Creek eventually returned to its peaceful rhythm. The bakery reopened each morning. The town clock continued to ring. Children continued playing in the park. Life moved forward, but people never forgot the lesson hidden within the story. Promises mean nothing without honesty. Trust must be earned, and truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way into the light. As the stars settled above Willow Creek and another quiet evening arrived, the town finally found something it had been searching for all along. Not revenge, not anger, but peace. And sometimes, peace is the greatest ending of all. The first snow of winter arrived early in Willow Creek. White flakes drifted across rooftops. Street lights glowed softly through the cold evening air. Most residents were preparing for the holidays. But inside the county investigation office, Detective Sarah Mitchell was preparing for something else. Answers. Stacks of files covered her desk. Phone records, statements, timelines, notes scribbled in blue ink. At first glance, everything looked ordinary, but investigations are rarely about what appears obvious. They are about patterns, and Detective Mitchell was very good at spotting patterns. She stared at one page longer than the others. A simple call log. Nothing dramatic. Nothing suspicious. At least not immediately. Yet one phone number appeared again and again. Late at night. Early mornings. Weekends. Holidays. The number belonged to someone investigators hadn't spoken to yet. A woman named Rebecca Hayes. Nobody knew who she was. At least not yet. Detective Mitchell leaned back. Sometimes the smallest clue opens the biggest door. And she had a feeling this was one of those moments. Across town lived 82-year-old Margaret Wilson. Margaret had two hobbies: watching birds and watching everybody else. Mostly from her favorite rocking chair. Neighbors jokingly called her the unofficial security camera of Willow Creek. If somebody painted their fence blue, Margaret knew. If somebody bought a new dog, Margaret knew. If somebody sneezed loudly 3 streets away, Margaret probably knew that too. When investigators visited her home, she greeted them with cookies and information. Lots of information. "Oh yes," Margaret said. "I remember Ethan." Detective Mitchell listened carefully. Margaret pointed toward the street. "He always drove through here on Thursdays." "Every Thursday?" "Without fail." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "What happened on Thursdays?" Margaret smiled. "That's what I figured you'd want to know." Margaret shuffled through old notebooks. "Yes, notebooks." She kept notebooks. Apparently for fun. The detectives exchanged surprised looks. Inside those notebooks were dates, vehicle descriptions, times, observations. Nothing illegal, nothing invasive. Just the habits of someone who noticed everything. And one particular pattern stood out. Ethan wasn't always going where he claimed. Every small town has one place where news travels faster than the internet. In Willow Creek, that place was Harper's Bakery. Fresh cinnamon rolls, warm coffee, and conversations that spread across town before breakfast. One rainy morning, Detective Mitchell stopped by. The owner, Harold Harper, greeted her immediately. "You're here about Ethan, aren't you?" Mitchell nearly laughed. "Was everyone in town psychic?" "No," Harold continued. "I just figured." He poured coffee. The detective sat quietly. Then Harold shared something interesting. Months earlier, one customer had claimed Ethan was living a double life. Everyone dismissed the claim. It sounded ridiculous. Even Harold ignored it. Until now. "Who made the claim?" Mitchell asked. Harold thought for a moment. Then snapped his fingers. "That's right. The traveling salesman." Nobody remembered his name. But somehow he remembered everyone else's business. The challenge now was finding him. Because what once sounded like gossip suddenly looked a lot like evidence. The stranger arrived on a cold Friday afternoon. A dark sedan rolled into Willow Creek. The driver parked outside the courthouse. He wore a gray coat, carried a worn leather briefcase, and seemed to know exactly where he was going. Nobody recognized him. Yet, his name was Daniel Hayes. And when investigators learned who he was, everything changed. Daniel wasn't just another visitor. He was Rebecca Hayes' brother, the same Rebecca whose phone number appeared repeatedly in Ethan's records. Daniel had information, important information, the kind investigators dream about. When Detective Mitchell met him, she immediately sensed his frustration. Not anger, not revenge. Frustration. The frustration of someone who had watched a lie grow larger and larger over time, and finally decided enough was enough. Investigators soon focused on a single weekend. 3 months earlier, A weekend where Ethan's story made no sense. According to Ethan, he attended a law enforcement training conference. According to conference records, he never checked in. According to hotel records, he never arrived. According to witnesses, he wasn't anywhere he claimed. So where was he? That question became the center of the investigation. Detective Mitchell built a timeline, hour by hour, minute by minute. What she discovered surprised everyone. The missing weekend connected multiple pieces of the puzzle, pieces that had never seemed related. Until now, the deeper investigators looked, the more complicated the story became, and the closer they moved toward the truth. Madison's best friend Chloe had spent months replaying conversations in her mind. Little comments, small inconsistencies, moments that felt strange. At the time, they seemed unimportant. Now they seemed enormous. One evening, Chloe sat surrounded by notebooks. Sticky notes covered her bedroom wall. Colored markers connected names, dates, places. Her father walked past the room, stopped, looked inside, and blinked. "Are you solving a mystery?" Chloe looked up. "Maybe." Her father slowly backed away. "Okay." A few minutes later he returned carrying pizza, because every investigation is apparently easier with pizza. By midnight, Chloe noticed something investigators had missed. Two separate events happened on the same day. Events that shouldn't have overlapped, yet somehow did. The timeline suddenly shifted, and a new lead emerged. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A storage company contacted investigators. One unit connected to Ethan contained personal belongings. Most items were ordinary: boxes, furniture, old photographs. Then someone opened a dusty container. Inside sat several photo albums. One album immediately caught attention: a wedding album. Page after page revealed a life Ethan rarely discussed. Family gatherings, celebrations, anniversaries, vacations, years of memories. The photographs painted a picture very different from the one he presented publicly. For investigators, the album wasn't just evidence, it was confirmation, a visual timeline, a documented history, and proof that critical facts had been hidden for a very long time. The discovery sent shockwaves through Willow Creek, but the biggest surprises were still ahead. Detective Mitchell had worked hundreds of cases. Most solved slowly, some solved quickly, a few solved themselves. This one felt different. Every answer seemed to create 3 new questions. But eventually persistence pays off. Late one evening, while reviewing records again, she spotted a connection everyone had overlooked. It was almost laughably simple: a single address. An address appearing in multiple locations, multiple documents, multiple dates, multiple witnesses, yet nobody connected them. Until now. Mitchell stared at the file, then smiled. Not because the situation was funny, because she finally saw the entire picture. The puzzle pieces were no longer scattered. They fit together perfectly, and once they fit together, the truth became impossible to ignore. If you like this video, kindly like, comment, subscribe to this channel.